Welcome everyone to the planning board meeting Monday, January 26th. This is fully remote due to the massive amounts of snow that we received yesterday and today. We'll go ahead and have Tag, if you don't mind reading the disclosure for us.
Sure thing. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and as amended of March 28, 2025 by a remote means in accordance with the applicable law, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by using the Zoom log and information provided on the agenda. Visitors can also visit the localscene.media/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, we've got a number of items on the agenda this evening.
We have to do a roll call vote since we're online.
Oh, yes. So, wait, why do we have to do that?
Just to make sure each member can be heard.
Okay. All right. Let's do a roll call vote to make sure everybody can be heard. I'll start with myself, Kristen Rapp. Aye. Hello. Jen? Jen?
Turcott, I can hear everyone. Aye.
Matt Ray,
Aye.
Aye.
Wayne Dennison.
Yep, and Steve Gant, I can hear everyone.
Great.
Lawrence Hooray.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right, so we have a number of items on the list tonight. First up, we've got a few administrative items. Actually, let me back up again and just say to everybody, thank you for joining us via Zoom. We have a lot on the agenda. We wanted to make sure that we were able to get to it. So that's why we decided to go ahead and hold this meeting. I'm glad that everybody was able to join us. We really appreciate that. First up is meeting minutes. Emily, I don't think those get into the folder though, did they?
No, I wasn't able to finish those, so we'll just push them to the next agenda.
That's perfect. Thank you. Next up will be Glen Way, regarding a reduction of performance security.
And Madam Chair, it's Steve Gant. I will be recusing myself from this particular decision. I recused myself from prior votes on this particular topic. So I'll depart from the meeting here and I'll rejoin in about 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Pat Brennan, our peer advisor, is here. Pat, would you like to explain why we're reducing this performance security?
Yes. So on the original, when I did the original estimates, I did one for Glen Way, which was the roadway itself. And then as part of that subdivision, they also proposed some work on the church property for a new detention basin, which they have completed other than seeding. So what this does, when I sent the original estimates into the board, I included one for the roadway and I separated the two of them, one for the roadway, one for the basin. And what this has done is it's reduced the amount of work on the basin, on the church basin, significantly. I believe I'll have to look and see, but basically they just have to do seeding now. The basin's complete. They just have to seed it once the weather breaks. So that's the only money that's being held now for that church basin at this point in time.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right. Do we have any discussion from the board on this? I would welcome a motion to approve this reduction of performance security.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote, starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, aye.
Kristen Rapp, aye.
Matt Ray, aye.
Lawrence.
Wayne Dennison, aye.
Lawrence Hooray, aye.
Tag Carpenter, aye.
And the motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, next up is an update on the villas at Keenbrook, which is 40B at 910 and 934 Temple Street. Matthew, do you have anything you'd like to share on that?
Yeah, it's actually pretty much just what I wrote in the report. That it's during the public hearing, the first public hearing before the ZBA, the applicant actually said that they were taking some of the planning board's advice into consideration and modifying the design accordingly. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise, since that sort of rarely happens, I would say, with 40Bs. I'm sure they're still going to sort of do it in a way that works for their profit as well. But still, it was nice to hear them say that. And then I just wanted to mention for the vote you just had for Glen Way, either Emily or I will probably be kind of pestering you in the next few days to get some signatures on that one. So just so you know.
All right.
So I can indicate that they went the potential 40B went before the zoning board, and in fact requested a continuance of the zoning board hearing on the 40B in order to at least contemplate some of the changes that the planning board had suggested.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you both for that update. All right, next up, does anybody else from the board have anything regarding any administrative details they'd like to go over at this point? Nope. Okay. All right, then I would move to open, we're going to continue the public hearing for Evelyn's Way at 0 Keene Street. This is a two lot subdivision. I think, Pat, did you want to give us any updates on that? I think there were some outstanding items and it seemed like you had been working with the applicant on a number of them.
Yes. They've addressed my concerns. In the latest letter that I sent to the board on January 12th, there's just 3 suggested conditions if you were to approve the project. One was related to the shade trees for the roadway, which, in your rules and regs, it says that it's to be determined between the tree warden and the applicant and then approved by the board. So, my recommendation would be that you allow the applicant to talk with the tree warden, come up with a plan for the shade trees, and then come back to the board for approval. So that was one of the conditions. The other condition was to have the road remain private in perpetuity, basically because it's essentially a driveway. And the board has wanted, and actually more so, the DPW has wanted these types of subdivisions to be private so that they don't get involved with plowing these small little subdivisions. And then the last one was in relation to the private wells, because they have private wells on these lots. In accordance with your rules and regulations, they need to meet DEP drinking water regulations, which also it's part of your Board of Health regulations. So it's kind of tied into the Board of Health anyway. So they have to go to the Board of Health to get the wells approved. But again, I'm just saying that if you approve it, you just say, yeah, the private wells need to be approved by the Board of Health. And then I think that covers everybody. And those were the only 3 outstanding issues that I had. Everything else had been addressed.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Are there any questions from the board?
This is Jen. Just one quick question about the condition on the wells. Is that like prior to the lot release, get the results from the Board of Health? Is that how that gets handled?
Yeah, so the last project that this happened with was Dogwood Drive off of Summer Street, Route 53. And what happened was when they went for building permits, obviously they had to get the well permits and the septic system permits. So everything had to go through Board of Health anyways. And basically, if they can't get the Board of Health permit, they're not getting a building permit. So it kind of covered there anyway. And the Board of Health in those instances had me review both the septic plan and the well application. So I think you're safe by doing that, but again, I just think it's good to have it as a condition just so that you cover yourselves as well.
Thanks, Jen. Any other questions from the board?
So is there a request by the applicant to continue? And if so, when do they want to continue to?
Hi, Mark Casey, South Shore Survey Consultants. I don't see at this point. I've reached out to the tree warden. He's been a busy guy over the past 2 weeks. We have conversed by email, and he's given me a complete list of species. It's just his availability, and especially now with this latest storm. And I understand another one coming up next weekend. We'll, be able, whenever he's got the time, he'll make time to actually sit down with me. We'll come up with the agreement on a tree planting plan, submit it to you folks for your approval. And obviously, until then, should you approve this, you're not going to give us a lot release anyways. So at this point, I just don't see any need to continue. I think I would ask if you would make a decision this evening.
Any other questions of the board?
Maybe I misunderstood. I thought you presented this as a continuance request.
No.
No, I'm asking Kristen.
No, we're just continuing the public hearing that's already open.
Okay, I see. Yep.
Any other questions from the board? Yes, Matthew.
So Pat, just to clarify, the road, Keene Street, that part of Keene Street, it's not a scenic road, right? So it's not that there's a tree within the right of way, but it's just that the trees on the property would involve the tree warden, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So the regulation is for shade trees, when you have a subdivision, you're supposed to plant shade trees along the new roadway, supplement the trees that have been removed during construction.
All right.
Many towns, they have regulations where you have to have a shade tree every 40 feet or something like that. Duxbury's regulation is that the applicant and the tree warden need to determine the number of trees, the locations, and the species. So that's all it is. It's just making sure that they go through that process, and then the board has the ability to approve it through a condition later on.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the board? From the board? All right, I will entertain a motion to close I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Let's call.
Yeah, given the fact that there are outstanding issues, that there are not going to be lot releases done, that there has not been the ability to confer with the tree warden yet, I don't fully understand why we're voting on this.
Well, we can do one of two things. We can continue the hearing, or we can approve it with conditions. Is your inclination just to continue the hearing until everything has been, till that's been worked out, Wayne?
I just don't know what conditions you want to impose specifically. I guess we would have to ask Pat for those.
I think it would be three. Basically, we would close the hearing and then entertain a motion to not waive the requirement for the 12 and the trees in the right of way, but in fact ask the applicant to work with the tree warden. Then we would ask that the language be such that this would be a private road in perpetuity, and that the owners, when it come to the town, asking for that to become a public way. And then the third would be that we would want to require that the private wells would need to be approved by the Board of Health.
And it seems like of those three conditions, only one of them is actually like sort of something that the applicant needs to actually do before they get building permits or whatever. The other two are more like kind of long-term, or maybe two of them are, but the remaining one is sort of a long-term thing. I mean, with the wells issue, we couldn't really hold off on that one anyway. We couldn't really hold it up for that reason anyway, I think. So it's really only one.
Matthew, when you say the one, do you mean the trees?
Correct, yeah. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, Pat, do you feel there is any problem with that? I mean, usually I usually advise, don't vote on projects until, almost everything's been resolved. But it seems like that one kind of would be pretty harmless to condition. How do you feel, Pat?
I would agree.
Okay, thank you. So would we like to continue the hearing or would we like to close it this evening? So we started with one motion and a second. Wayne, what are your thoughts there?
I express my thoughts.
Okay. All right.
Did you open it up to public comment before you close the hearing?
No, I guess I did not, Emily. All right, so let's back up. So we've heard from the peer review, the board, some of the board members, the planning director, and the applicant. So is there anybody from the public that has any comments?
My name is Douglas Berardi. I'm the purchaser of the lot and the working with Mark Casey. My understanding from the last meeting is that we talked about these things and they would be made conditions. Not at least my understanding the last time. At the last meeting it wasn't. It would be continued again as long as these conditions were outlined and agreed upon. Then there would be a vote for approval.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public, from the applicant or the upper public?
Yeah, could I point something out? I just normally don't take the time to stress this point, but in your subdivision rules and regulations, specifically 7.3.7D1, and that's got to do with the calculations done for stormwater management for pre and post development calculations. Your regulations don't specify what rainfall intensity data is to be used. So technically, the way your regulation is written right now, we could use the rainfall intensity data from Technical Release 55, which is from 1976, and in my opinion, not realistic with climatic conditions today. So to give you an example, if we were to use TR55 rainfall intensity, a 100-year storm would be 7 inches of rain during a 24-hour period. We have used the Cornell rainfall intensity atlas, and that calls for 8.8 inches of rain during a 24-hour period for a 100-year storm. So my point here is that everything we've done drainage-wise just far exceeds any requirements that you have in your subdivision rules and regulations, which as a citizen of Duxbury, I'd like to see you change, by the way, to make sure that the Cornell rainfall intensity atlas is used. What does that mean on the ground? It means that the recharge area for drainage is about 25% bigger. If you look at a 100-year storm and we were to do an equivalency ratio using 8.8 inches of rain instead of 7 inches of rain, we're looking at a 125.7-year storm event. So.
All right, thank you, Mark. Would you mind just pointing out the section again for me, please?
That is 7.3.7D1.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're planning to we'll be looking at the bylaws and rules and regulations here, so that's helpful to know. Thank you. All right, any other thoughts from the applicant? From the general public? Okay. I will let's backtrack and I'll move to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. I guess just you may want to kind of review how the vote is going to, where people lean as far as the vote, because if you close it and then you don't get then you do a motion to approve or deny and you don't get enough votes, then I'm not sure procedurally if you can reopen the hearing again or what you do. It looks to me, at least from my record, that the first public hearing for this on January 12th, and I should thank Emily for keeping these records. It was Kristen, Tag, Steve, Matt, and Wayne who were present. So just, I guess, kind of speaking hypothetically, if Wayne wasn't to vote in favor, you'd need all the other four to vote
Um,
in favor to approve
Jen
them.
and Lauren signed the Mullins rule form,
Oh,
so they're good.
okay. All right. I stand corrected then.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Matthew, for pointing that out. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
any discussion among the board? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote to close the public hearing for Evelyn's Way subdivision, starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, aye.
Kristen Rappi.
Matthew Ray, aye.
Steve Gant, aye.
Ted Carpenter, aye.
Lawrence Roy, aye.
Wayne Dennison, nay.
Okay. So question, Matthew, if we have we have 6-1, do we close it, or is there a reason that we would need to keep this open? Or would we?
Oh no, I think as long as it's I believe as long as it's a majority vote, at least 4 votes to close the hearing, I think that's sufficient. Like, like with most votes, you just need a majority. Yeah.
Just checking. Something. Okay. All right. Move on. And then, so now that we've closed the hearing, is there any? Well, entertain a motion to approve Evelyn's Way subdivision with the 3 conditions. The 3 conditions being that we would want the applicant to work with the tree warden. And that's spelled out here. We would move to grant a waiver from the requirements to show all trees greater than 12 inches in diameter within the proposed right of way on the plan of the subdivision rules and regulations. We would also request that that this be made, that we craft language that this would be a private road in perpetuity, and that the owners, the HOA or the owners, would not seek for this to become a public way. And then the third condition would be that we would require private wells that would need to be approved by the Board of Health.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board on these? Hearing none, we'll call for a roll call vote. Starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, aye.
Kristen Rappi.
Matthew Ray, aye.
Steve Gant, aye.
Ted Carpenter, aye.
Lawrence Roy, aye.
Wayne Dennison, aye.
Motion passes. The next would be I will entertain a motion to approve the definitive subdivision at 0 Keene Street to be known as Evelyn's Way, with the waivers and conditions as we've discussed at tonight's meeting and subject to standard subdivision conditions. Do we have a motion?
Sorry.
So moved.
What did we just do?
The first one was to grant the waivers, and then this one would be to actually approve the subdivision with the waivers.
I think you kind of did all of them in one.
All at once? Okay, all right.
It seems like it.
I did, sorry, I'm trying to, okay. All right, we're covered there. All right, so next steps, the planning staff will file the subdivision with the town clerk's office. Then the applicants will get the planning boards, will need to sign and get notarized a planning board covenant that will be sent to them by the planning staff. And there's a series of work that they'll need to do with the staff. Then once we receive all the documents, the planning board will endorse these and the covenant, and then they'll need to record it with the County of Deeds. Any questions about that going forward? Nope.
None here.
All right, thank you. Next up is on the agenda is the continued public hearing of 51 Wadsworth Road subdivision. We'll go ahead and continue with that. Let me see here. So I believe that the applicant has modified their original application. So perhaps they would like to share with us. Why don't you go ahead and tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Be happy to kind of set the stage here. For the record, Rob D'Ambroso. I'm not Ellen, but I'm not working in my normal workspace here and don't know how to fix this. So Rob D'Ambrosio, attorney at law, D'Ambrosio Law LLC in Plymouth. I represent the applicant who I have here with me, or at least the principal of the applicant, Eric Pontiff. We've got Josh Green, our civil engineer, here with us as well tonight. Everyone on the board, and I'm not sure who in the audience is here for this, is quite familiar with the project at this point because it's been pending coming up on a year, I believe, but really in earnest since June. And this is my 5th or 6th planning board hearing. So anyway, throughout this lengthy process, I think we've had a productive dialogue. We've been able to put to bed many of the queries and concerns that have been posed early in the process. There were some questions relative to Mass Historic's role, regulatory purview, questions about a coastal bank. We've had certainly Pat Brennan's given us a robust review and some input on those and other issues. So we've kicked the tires on this one quite thoroughly at this point, I think. We've also discussed at length the requested waivers. We had a laundry list of waivers from your subdivision rules and regs that were requested. I think we had 10 or 11 initially. So, we took your feedback. And again, bearing in mind that the board was narrowly interpreting public interest, I think they're conservatively interpreting public interest when they evaluated the propriety of granting some of these waivers. We've come back and now we're down to just one. So again, we've eliminated all of the other waivers that the board had any concern relative to, and we really now are down to a single waiver, which, as you know, has the greatest impact on design, and I think not coincidentally would have the greatest benefit to the project and to the public if it were to be granted by the board. So we've discussed at length the benefits of that waiver. The waiver being a smaller cul-de-sac, an 80-foot in diameter cul-de-sac, rather than the 150-foot diameter that the subdivision rules and regs call for. So we've asked to reduce the diameter of the cul-de-sac. And again, we've talked about the benefits of it, in many contexts, limited clearing, reduced clearing, benefit to the streetscape, fewer truck trips, environmental benefits, keeping the project further away from the resource area to the rear of the lot and further away from the steep slope. But I think that, what we'd like to do tonight is walk you through, and you've probably had a chance, I hope you had a chance to read the memo that we circulated, kind of the additional steps that we've taken to empirically quantify these benefits. So it's not just us saying, yeah, this is going to be better. Of course it's better, guys. Look at the plan. We tried to put a point on that by giving you some hard data to hang your hat on. So if I may, and now I got to find it, I'd like to share my screen. Is that Emily? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, you should be able to.
All right, cool. Hang on a second. All right. So I think this is it. Yeah. Okay. All right. I am going to. Sorry, guys. I'm more of a Microsoft Teams, actually in-person guy, really. I'm not swift with this stuff. Share. Here we go. Okay, can you guys see a PDF file, a January 21st memo from our consulting engineer?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So everyone on the board had a chance to review this, I'm sure, for the benefit of people in the public or anyone who hasn't had a chance to read it. Again, I'm not going to go through it word for word, being respectful of everyone's time. But again, what we've done here, and really, I'll give credit to Josh Green, our civil engineer, he performed an analysis of how much disturbance there would be to the site across 3 metrics based on what we'll call the waiver layout, which is the preferred smaller cul-de-sac area, and the no waiver layout. So again, in either case, there's going to be some material brought onto site, but dramatically less with the waiver layout. So again, the metrics here that we've tried to quantify, assuming that everyone is going to have a modest backyard of some kind behind whatever house is constructed, they're set forth here. So again, land disturbance based on square footage, that's an area measurement, of course. how much cut and fill will be done on site. That's measured in volume cubic yards, and then the number of dump truck trips required to move the fill, which again, that's obviously disturbance to the neighborhood and impact on the roadway, public roadway. And then the distance of the site disturbance from the wetland in linear feet. So again, you can see, I can walk you through it, but I don't want to belabor this. We've got a significant 10% reduction in land disturbance, but we've really got a dramatic reduction in the amount of fill that's going to come on site, and that corresponds directly to the number of truck trips. So that's a dramatic 80% reduction. Again, theory being, if we can bring the to be constructed homes and, of course, the roadway closer to Wadsworth, we can be further away from that sloping area to the rear of the lot. So less fill required. And again, getting away from that resource area, which is that last metric, we'll almost cut in half the distance from the wetland. So you've got 80% reduction in fill and truck trips and a 49% reduction in the distance of the work from the wetland. Again, I think that, we're obviously altering the site less. It's going to be visually less disturbance, certainly from the streetscape, from an aerial perspective, however you measure it. And again, obviously, we're altering the topography less by having the lots closer to the front of the lot. So, Josh went on and kind of developed these two cut fill maps that show where the material would come from and go in each of the two layouts. Obviously, this first one being the preferred layout. So Josh can walk us through that in more detail, but really that's kind of the main thrust here of the presentation, is to show you that, these are quantifiable, measurable benefits. And again, we obviously evaluate, or the board, you evaluate waiver requests in terms of what's in the public interest. So, I guess, and one more thing to note is that the no waiver plan, if we go that route, it's going to be a longer construction period, which again is more disruptive to the neighborhood. I'm sure that the abutters would like to see this wrapped up in short order if possible. So that's one more item that, wasn't quantified here, but that kind of goes hand in hand with how much site work needs to be done. So again, I think that, I would just summarize this, put a point on it by saying there's going to be two houses built here via one subdivision layout or another. This is the board's opportunity here to direct this project and select a design that you think is in the best interest of the community, in the public interest. And again, I think it's apparent to me which is the better plan. We've tried to make that case to the board, and we hope that this helps you to evaluate it. And with that said, we're happy to take any questions, and if getting technical, Josh can field it. And that's what I have for you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ellen.
Through the chair, I have a couple of questions.
Please go ahead, Wayne.
The first of which is I thought that this required more than one waiver, even if you talk about the 150 feet. I don't think it was a controversial waiver, but I thought we were asked to waive the granite curbs in favor of Cape Cod berms.
If you want to give us that waiver, Mr. Dennison, we'd be glad to take it. But again, in the interest of going along to get along, we didn't ask for that waiver.
Oh, okay. You're not asking for it now. The last time we talked, I believed you did, or maybe I missed.
Oh, no, we did. Correct.
Yeah. So the second question I had is this: we now have a submission dated January 21, 2026 from a consulting engineer. Has Pat Brennan had an opportunity to review these numbers and weigh in on these numbers? Because these are technical analyses that quite frankly are not immediately within my purview, and I think more appropriately directed to Pat.
Yes, Pat Brennan here. I have looked at the numbers that they provided, looked at the plans that are attached to that letter, and I would confirm those numbers.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. All right. So anything, do any other board members have any questions?
Madam Chair, it's Steve Gant. Through you, I do have a question for Mr. Green. I'm looking at Mr. Green's response letter. This is dated January 19th. This is in response to PGB Engineering's letter of January 14th. In the Homestead letter dated January 19th, there's there's a response to the second point that PGB had raised in the January 14th letter. And that was in accordance with section 7.3.6. There should be a vertical curve shown at the change in street grade on the roadway profile on sheet C4. Mr. Green has a response there that, quite frankly, eludes me. So I was hoping that Mr. Green might be able to explain the response to number 2 so that I can just understand that a little better.
Yeah, so Steve, if you look at that sheet, which has the profile on it, it's really adding the data above the roadway. If you're looking at it, it says PVI station, and then gives some other information. It was actually providing that data for the vertical curve. And then the response that we had pertained to the actual section. Because of how short this roadway is, the K value just doesn't work due to that, which is why, well, I assume, which is why they gave the flexibility to go to AASHTO's regulations. So basically, because of that shortness of roadway, we had to go back to that to check a reasonable speed limit and calculate the K value back that way. And it did work off AASHTO's regulations.
Steve, do you have that in front of you, or would you like Emily to pull that up?
I can share the plan too if needed.
Yeah, I do have that. And that explanation does make sense. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board? Well, I'd like to thank the applicant. I think we started out with how many waivers originally? Was it 13 maybe?
It was double digits. I thought it was 11. It might have been 13.
13 or 11, and we were, I think the last count we were down to 9. So I appreciate the extra effort that you did to work through all those, even the ones that we said that we were fine with. I'm going to check in. I would like to get a little bit more feedback from the board though on this. Thoughts? Should I do roll? This is a little challenging. Usually I go down the table and I can't do that today. So maybe I'll just check in with everybody around the screen. Jen, any thoughts on this? Ask the request for this particular waiver, pros and cons. Actually, let me back up and say that this was one of the waivers that I appreciate that the applicants wanted to make this work, and that this is that you presented this option with a request for the waiver, what it would look like, and the impact if we deny that. But I do know that it was one of the waivers that the board was reluctant to provide. So I would like to go kind of one by one and get some feedback on that. So Jen, I'll start with you. Oh, you're on mute.
I'll be honest. This is the waiver that I had the most heartburn with. I see the merits of granting it, and I also am opposed to granting it. It's a tough one.
And Jen, do you want to elaborate on your thoughts of why not to waive it? Is there anything in particular? Not trying to put you on the spot, but just helping to have conversation with the board.
Yeah. The layout is something that, and maybe Pat can also weigh in on here, that the geometry is unusual in that, it doesn't have the cul-de-sac. It has like a partial cul-de-sac circle, which in the almost 15 years that I've been on the board, I've never seen a layout like this. So to me, it's sort of, it's a way to create frontage. I do understand, and I can see the benefits of, granting the waiver given the amount of site work that would need to be done if it were not granted. But I would also say that the work within the buffer zone of the wetland on the lot to the right would complicate the conservation filing. And I'm not speaking for anyone on the Conservation Commission. I'm just making an observation here. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Matt, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm inclined to grant the waiver. I think the benchmark test, as Rob pointed out, is the benefit to the town. And as explained in Josh's letter, we are reducing the amount of site work, reducing the amount of impervious pavement that's going to be there with the smaller. Jen, to one quick point, my recollection to what you just raised with regards to the design on the hammerhead, well, not a hammerhead, but the design of the cul-de-sac where the pavement doesn't encapsulate the whole circular drive, that was hashed over some prior meetings. And Amy Keswell, I believe, confirmed so long as the pavement was taken out to each of the property lines that would satisfy the town's regulations with regards to that. And I think we vetted that somewhat thoroughly before, in terms of I agree it's not a typical design, but I do believe that my recollection was that town council confirmed that so long as the pavement of the driveway was taken out to each lot line, that would satisfy the requirements. Just to get back, I don't think requiring the 150-foot diameter driveway gets the town any benefits here. My understanding is the project could still be cited without having to go, even if we required the 150-foot diameter driveway, could still be cited without having to be falling within the purview of the Conservation Commission. So I do think by granting the waiver, we reduce the land disturbance, we reduce the size of the driveway, and I do think overall that does meet the benchmark, at least in my consideration, to add some benefit for the town in granting that one waiver.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Let's go to Steve next.
Sure. Thanks, Kristen. My concern about this from the beginning was the impact that this would have on the streetscape and then on the resource at the rear of the property. And the 80-foot the 80-foot diameter, I think, is really something that minimizes the impact to the streetscape, considerably less than the 150 diameter would do. And again, we've got some strong quantitative evidence here too, that the 80-foot diameter really does minimize the impact, not only on the streetscape, but then also on the resources on the site as well. So I am in favor of this waiver, and I will vote to approve it.
Thanks, Steve. All right, how about Wayne?
Thank you. I'll tell you, when I first saw this plan submitted after the last continuance, it really did feel like a bait and switch to me. We had a very lengthy hearing that discussed potential waivers. We took a vote with respect to potential waivers. This waiver, after significant discussion, was at least through the straw vote voted down. And it does feel to me a little like a bait and switch. That said, the hearing was still open, and the applicant was fully entitled to come back with every reason that this is a superior plan to the one with 150-foot waiver, with the one with the 150-foot roundabout. So my view on this is this: the public interest of the town of Duxbury is expressed in its rules and regulations. the public interest of the town in Duxbury with respect to very small subdivisions is very clear with respect to the size of the diameter of the cul-de-sac layout. It says a 150-foot diameter cul-de-sac layout shall be required. The best expression of the public interest that I know are the rules and regulation adopted by the town. And the rules and regulations adopted by the town with respect to very small subdivisions. We're talking about subdivisions which under this provision are 3 lots or less. These are subdivisions that aren't going to comply with standard zoning rules. So we're going to set aside the standard zoning rules. We're going to permit a subdivision, and we're going to have a very small number of dimensional requirements that reflect what we need to do to make this subdivision good. And frankly, the notion that the applicant comes in here and they're perfectly entitled to say, hey, there's going to be 2 houses here anyway. You decide whether whether this is a horrible situation or a better situation. I am not convinced that there are going to be 2 houses there. And irrespective of the very excellent advice that Pat Brennan has given, the delineation of the coastal bank and the manner in which it has been delineated is not clear cut to me. And my sense of this is that the more likely outcome here is once there is Conservation Commission involvement, that we're going to get a far better view of the project, and quite frankly, in my mind, a far better project. I don't purport to know what the Concom is going to do. And I do note that the chair of the Concom is the applicant's lawyer. So he probably has a better sense, but I doubt he gets to vote on it. But my sense of this is that we have rules that are a reflection of the town's public interest. And the notion that we're going to set aside that because an applicant comes in and says, I'm going to build something that's harder for me and therefore worse for you, that's not going to do it for me. I fully understand that I am tilting against windmills here, but I would not and will not vote to waive this condition.
All right, Wayne, I appreciate that. I'll hold off on my comments till I hear from everybody else. Tag?
Sure, thank you. I guess I'd like to refer back to the artifacts or the exhibits provided in the letter, X1 and X2, X2 specifically being the by right version that doesn't require a waiver. And my question about this X2 is on the right for House A, it shows in a very schematic way a driveway extending to the right. That's what I think it is. It's supposed to be a driveway. Heading out of the cul-de-sac layout, parallel with the street, taking a hard left turn and then going down to the house. And by my reading of the topological elevation indicators, it looks like that driveway drops 10 feet. And I was wondering if you could tell me what the length of that driveway is.
Don't have the length off the top of my head. I can get it in 1 second, Tag, but I do know the slope is about 8 to 10%, depending on, so it's 10% on the straightaways, 8% on the curve.
8 to 10%.
If that kind of helps you.
Yep, I appreciate that because that's what I was looking for. And then I have a question for the more experienced board members, if whether that grade meets the criteria of the bylaws, 8 to 10% grade.
Well, we don't govern driveway slopes.
And Tag, I would say that, oh, sorry, but just will say in general, if we have a lesser slope, it's going to mean more fill.
Right, of course. Yeah. Well, what I'm getting at is the concern that I have is the Uh, as I understand it, this layout without waivers is sort of the default, and that's what, by right you can do without even really, frankly, coming before this board. Uh, and the question would be whether the access provided is is actually usable. Is it feasible, safe, convenient? And this is what I keep getting hung up on, because you have a parcel which has a topological hardship. It creates a hardship. This is why we're talking about Phil. And having a roadway layout that doesn't actually provide you with the necessary safety and convenience isn't something we're supposed to do. So that's the question that I'm really wrestling with, is whether these plans, any of these plans, in particular the one without the waiver, meets the criteria in Mass General Law and the bylaws for actual access because of the topological hardship and the fill required. In my view, they look like they're borderline illusory, and the necessity of constructing guardrails and all the fill and retaining walls, these create safety hazards and inconveniences. So they are in direct contradiction to the law. And these are the things that really give me pause about this whole application. The assertion that, as Wayne said, that we're going to do two houses regardless. I still don't see it. I don't think that that's true. So I have serious questions about the application without the waiver or the application with the waiver.
Anything else, Tag?
No, that's all I can say about it right now.
All right,
Thank you.
Pat, do you mind if you weigh in on any of the comments that Tag said? Does any of that fall into our purview here? It seems like that might be more building.
Yeah, so it is more building, but like they showed with both of the plans, the non-waiver plan as well as the plan that like approved with the waiver, they can do both. It's just that the plan without the waiver, they would likely need to go before conservation, and there would be more land disturbance and fill required. That's basically it in summary.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Lauren?
It's kind of hard to follow up from Wayne and Tag. First, I do appreciate the analysis letter. It's some great information. It's quite a bit difference with the cut and fill and then the distance from the wetlands. But after hearing Wayne and Tag, I am really concerned with just kind of setting the precedent. Like, this is our bylaws for a reason. We should probably stick to it. I'm torn between this. I just can't. It's gonna be hard.
All right, thank you. All right, did I get everybody? I agree with everybody on the board, right? It's not standard. I've said this at the outset. I wish that this street had been remained half-acre lots, because it would just make this so much easier. However, we do have updated zoning, updated rules and regulations, and this is where we are. And it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. I think about all the time that the applicants team has spent on this. Like, they know it's challenging. We know it is too. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So I'd like to acknowledge too the amount of effort that's gone into this and thinking about this on both sides. Matthew and I have had multiple long conversations about this. And that reminds me, Matthew, I haven't asked you to weigh in too.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was about to just mention a few things that kind of jumped to my mind. I guess it does. I mean, personally, I feel a little bit of sympathy to this waiver, because I don't see, and Pat can correct me if I'm wrong, or somebody else can, but I don't see like any sort of compelling reason why 150 feet is really better. Like, obviously, if the actual turning radius was actually being, if the loop was actually being built, the turning radius and the whole loop was being built, as would be the case for any subdivision of 4 houses or more, then obviously you need the 150 feet because you need that to make it the loop, appropriately for fire trucks and so on and so forth. In this case, um, and usually I feel reluctant to, I'm not a big fan of granting lots of waivers, but in this case, it doesn't seem like there's sort of, and again, Tag can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem as though there's any kind of reason for the 150-foot rule in a situation like this where it's just a hammerhead layout anyway. It seems like there's no harm in 80 feet. Um, on the other hand, though, I think obviously Wayne makes and other people make a really valid point that the rules exist for a reason. And normally you grant waivers if there's kind of a compelling public interest or town interest. You don't grant waivers. Typically, one doesn't grant waivers just because it's advantageous to the applicant. So I guess there's sort of a philosophical question there of how you decide whether or not to grant the waiver. And I think also to what Lauren said, it will kind of be a precedent. And so I think the question maybe isn't so much just about this one, but sort of in the future, for 2 or 3 lot subdivisions, well, especially 2 lot subdivisions with hammerheads, but I guess maybe for 3 lots as well, where they're still allowed to do this kind of hammerhead design instead of a full turning radius. Do you want it to be kind of your unofficial sort of policy or precedent that you're willing to go down to 80 feet for that diameter? I mean, to me, I guess I don't really see any harm in it. Again, I think Pat should definitely speak up if he sees any, compelling reason for it. But I don't really see like any compelling reason from the town's point of view that it should be that we really need to keep the 150 feet. But then again, that still the fact remains that for the most part, we'd be doing this, because it serves the applicant's interest. I mean, I guess you could argue that it's better for stormwater and less construction, maybe is better for the town, but still, for the most part, it's more about kind of the applicant's interest here. So it's a difficult decision, definitely.
Tag, go ahead.
Kristen, can I just say something? I know you've already given me an opportunity to talk, but after Matt has talked, I do want to point this out, and I know the board knows this, but the test here has nothing to do with compelling reason. And Matt said at least 3 or 4 times, I see no compelling reason. That's not the test. Mm-hmm. The test here is the waiver in the public interest? And whether or not there is a compelling reason to permit the waiver is not what the bylaw says. It's not what the rules say. It's not what the regulations say. And I don't want to reframe the issue in terms of we have to prove a compelling reason why we're going to stand by our rules. That's not what's happening here, and it's not what should happen here.
Good. Thank you. Pat, is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is the roadway is the same, whether it's the 180-foot diameter or the 150. It's the exact same layout, exact same pavement. There's no difference between the two.
I'm sorry, wait, say that again. It's no different.
There's no difference in terms of the proposed roadway that they show, the pavement. There's no difference between the 80-foot radius or the 80-foot diameter or the 150. It's the same for the roadway itself. It's the same exact project. It's just what happens on the lots after the fact.
So are you referencing the Homestead Consulting Engineers, like the page X2? Is that what you're?
Yeah. So the no waiver plan, which is
one.
I think it was the alternate right-of-way exhibit that was dated 10/17/25. That one, the pavement is the exact same that they show on the plan that's before you right now.
All right. Do you happen to have that handy? It might be good to reference that or to see it.
I can
I'm looking at I've got today's things up on my other screen.
I don't know if I can share, but if I can share, I can show it.
Yeah. I think you have the ability to share.
All right, so this is, can you see that now?
Yes.
So this is the no waiver plan with the 150-foot diameter. This paved surface is actually the same surface that you have on this current 80-foot diameter plan. I'm switching between the two, but it's the same amount of pavement.
But Pat, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you just said, because at least from what I understood the town councils to tell us is that you're going to have to pave all the way to the houses.
I think it was all the way to the edge of the cul-de-sac, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, all the way to the edge of the cul-de-sac.
No,
Was it-
it was to pave through the frontage of the lot, which both of these plans do. Both of these plans, and basically, and it's the way that your rules and regs regulate. They say that access must be provided through the proposed roadway. Whereas, if you recall, at one point, I believe they were maybe going to have driveways off of Wadsworth Road to the two houses. Both of these plans, and so they've gone to the point where both of these plans both show access to the houses through the proposed right of way, which is what the requirement is.
Would you mind flipping back to the one from October, please?
Yep.
So
There it is.
this would be, Jen?
Kristen, should I share my screen real quick? I have both of them up side by side on top of each other. It might help.
Sure.
Yeah, let me stop sharing.
Thanks.
Hmm.
Can you see that?
Got it.
So this is the 150, this is the 80 down here.
So the marked difference is that on the second lot, the house is pushed towards the wetland.
Correct.
So I completely understand why the town would be hesitant in granting the waiver, but it can't be more clear to me that the plan with the house further from the wetland is a benefit to all the things that have been talked about through this public hearing process. Less clearing, less activity in the neighborhood, greater distance from the wetland. I respect Wayne's opinion that the rules are the rules, but we're showing in Rob's comment, while it was brief, that we can do it either way, and we've done this exhaustive process to show that the waiver is not going, whether the waiver is granted or not, is not going to end the project. If in these small subdivisions, the waiver was the reason whether or not additional housing was going to go in, that's a different issue. What Rob was explaining is that even without the waiver, we can build the two houses. So why not work together, grant the waiver, and create a better project? It's not a linear thought process to me on why a 150-foot paper cul-de-sac is a benefit to the town. That's unclear to me.
Kristen, I'd like to add one thing to follow up for the board's discussion. I agree that the rules and regulations are the representation of the town as they were voted in a town meeting, and not to do the applicant's job for them or Rob's job for them. But the rules and regulations also explicitly provide for the avenue or the procedure to request waivers, and that was included in the regulations that were passed by the town. So the ability to request a waiver would also be representative of the town's the thoughts and wishes of the townspeople that were voted at town meeting. Now, where I'm going with that is since we know that they have the ability to request a waiver, it is our job to analyze these waivers with that threshold test being, is it in the best interest of the public to grant this waiver? Now, we're talking about a 2-lot subdivision on Wadsworth Road that 98% of the townspeople likely won't drive by or access. So when we want to get down to whether it's in the best interest of the public, I think we really need to analyze whether it's in the best interest of the townspeople that live in those neighborhoods, in that neighborhood. And my recollection and why I'm inclined to grant the waiver is from the past meetings, repeatedly it's been told that they would, if two houses or 2 lots are going to be built, they would prefer to minimize the disruption to the topography, less pavement, and I believe the 80-foot waiver request does that. So in my mind, that is where we get to be in the best interest of the town.
Thank you, Matt.
My recollection of the various meetings is similar, but differs in this one respect. I sat through and understood there to be very significant concerns about whether there has been sufficient regulatory review of the conservation issues. One of these plans seems to me to require Conservation Commission involvement and a much more thorough review of Conservation Commission issues. It also likely resolves what I think is in fact an open issue with respect to the delineation of the coastal bank. I understand that others feel that that issue has been resolved. I have, however, heard from, although they are lay experts but folks who live in this town who do this work routinely and understand this intuitively, that this delineation is insufficient. I believe that any development of this property requires further review, and the manner in which I think further review will be required is if it ultimately kicks over to the Conservation Commission. I fully respect what Mr. Pontiff is trying to do. I fully respect Mr. Pontiff. The issue here for me is that ultimately I've listened to a whole bunch of neighbors say the same thing about, hey, we need to get the Concom involved.
Let me make a 30-second remark, if I may. I agree with Mr. Dennison completely, and I think we've tried to make the point before that this development is going to require review from numerous town bodies going forward, just like any project. And that is what ensures that whatever goes here, roadway, houses, infrastructure, is going to be appropriate and protect the town's resources and safely constructed. I mean, that is the function of various town bodies, Board of Health, inspectional services, etc. So Wayne is spot on, and I think that's what should give you comfort that no one is skirting anything relative to a coastal bank or anything else, which we've discussed at length. So again, there's plenty of guardrails here, whether it's one house, 2 houses, no waiver layout, that the town has various departments that make sure everything is done correctly and safely.
As well as Pat Brennan's opinion here that has never raised question to any of the delineations here. This is a professional review by a consulting engineer that I'm paying for at my expense for the town's benefit. So it's unclear to me why that's not an accurate representation and reflection of the professional engineer's engineering report here.
Thank you. Pat, I want to go back to, thank you, Wayne and Ellen. That. Pat, I want to go back to this drawing that we have up here on the screen just for a second. You said that pavement, so you meant when you were referencing pavement, you meant more the street to these 2 houses. But I imagine that in the top no waiver scenario, they would also need a driveway. So isn't that additional pavement?
Yes,
Maybe.
It would be additional pavement for the driveways. Typically, the planning board's looking at the street, the roadway itself.
It was the word pavement.
Yep.
Clarification. Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any other comments from the board? All right. So I'd like to weigh in a little bit here. A lot of great thought, a lot of great opinions here. As I said, I really agree with everyone in many different ways. This is challenging. I think Jen and Wayne brought up some really good points about just this isn't something, we grant waivers. It's easier to grant a waiver on certain things. If the town engineer says, let's do this change the water pipe, or if the water department says change the water pipe or something like that, that makes sense, right? In this scenario, granting this waiver is more, it has more in my thoughts, it's more about what is in the interest of the public, to Matt's point about, and that's the challenge here. Like, that's the litmus test for me. And I feel like it would be less disruptive to the neighborhood, to the neighbors, the topography, if we did grant the 80-foot waiver, so that the property didn't need to go back so far and require so much fill. And I look at that as being the best use there. And I believe that our rules and regulations are what guide us, yes, but we do have these waivers and we are allowed to use them when we see fit. And if we have a difference in opinion of some board members, that's okay. That's why we're here. And that's what has made this a very rich and robust conversation. So I would lean in favor of granting this particular waiver. So next steps, I want to check and see if there's anything else from the board or the applicant before we open this up to the public.
Well,
Okay.
can I jump in for a moment? Not to get ahead of things, because I do want to hear from the public. But given if we accept the premise, which I'm not committed to doing, but if as a thought experiment, we accept the premise that 2 houses will be built here, despite the fact that it is a single parcel lot, and we're trying to finagle a way around building away. I want to put on the table for your thought, Madam Chair, that we seem to be dancing around this question of public benefit and defining the public benefit of attempting to influence or shape the placement of the houses on the parcel, while at the same time looking at a definitive subdivision plan which in no way constrains what the builder may do with the placement of the houses after the subdivision plan is granted. So the whole thing is a little bit of a thought experiment in that respect. But what I'm going to suggest is this, that if the board is seriously considering entertaining granting a waiver to reduce the size of the cul-de-sac on the premise that it will reduce the development impact on the lot, wouldn't it make sense for the planning board to place a condition on the approval requiring that the construction be constrained to within, say, 100 feet of the road? Since that seems to be the shared objective, the builder has said that's what they wanted, the residents have said that's what they want, this is what we're all talking about, it shouldn't go too far down the hill, wouldn't it be necessary to make that a condition? And that's just the thought I wanted to share. Thank you.
Anybody have any thoughts on that? Board members, I mean. I think I'd be a little reluctant, Tag, to put a constraint like that on it, because we haven't done that before. And just because, Wayne's pointed out a number of times, just because we have one policy doesn't mean that that will continue. However, in this case, that's not something that we've done, and I would be hesitant to restrict, to tie the hand of a developer like that. Because Mr. D'Ambrosio pointed out that this will have other members of the town who will be looking at, other departments in the town that will be looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest about that, though. Mr. D'Ambrosio is absolutely correct, and other people look at it. But the other people who are going to look at it, does it comply with the state building code? We're never going to get a deep dive into the conservation issues. We're certainly never going to get a deep dive into the historic or potentially historic nature of the properties. The level of further review requires very good, in fact, excellent representation. But these are all things that are going to be dot the I, cross the T. They're going to get over the finish line on these issues. This is the last place of substantive review as to whether these ought to be 2 lots and how those lots should be configured. We're the bottom line here.
I think that Kristen, if I can jump in, I mean, I think what Tag is saying, if I understand him correctly, I don't think a condition like that would be legally valid, just because I think you can't. I mean, when the planning board is reviewing a definitive subdivision application, the planning board is reviewing a lot of things related to engineering and design and so forth. But I think my understanding is that generally at the end of the process, the planning board is not kind of determining where the house can or cannot be on the lot. You're creating buildable lots. You are controlling the grading and stormwater and a lot of other things, but ultimately once it's approved, the applicant kind of has freedom, assuming it meets, assuming the building commissioner accepts it, the applicant has a certain amount of freedom to put the house where he or she wants, especially because, of course, Concom could impose restrictions or other things anyway that we don't know, or we don't anticipate. So I mean, maybe Pat Brennan can jump in here, but and clarify it or correct me. But I feel as though we can't say, oh, the house has to be over here, or the house has to be within a certain distance from here or here. Of course, the house has to be within the setbacks and that sort of thing, but otherwise, we're just creating buildable lots, is my kind of understanding.
Anyone else from the board?
Yeah, I would agree with Matthew. I don't think that, well, I think the intent behind Tag's suggestion is a good one. I don't think legally we can put those restrictions on the siting of improvements on the property.
Thanks,
Well,
Matt.
I'm simply suggesting that we codify the agreement that we're making verbally here today. I mean, the whole premise that this is what we're being told, that the reason we would grant the waiver is to ensure that the house stays towards the front of the lot. So this would just simply be documenting that agreement. It's not a legally binding condition that we're coercing anyone into. It's an expression of the agreement being made. That's the way I see it.
So I just, if I could interject, subdivision control is about the infrastructure and the roadway. That's the purview of the planning board, and that's what the rules and regs speak to. So I don't think we have much of an issue with a condition like that. I mean, I don't want to speak out of school here, but it's just not on the table as part of this application.
I'm going to be candid with you. I fully agree with Rob on this one. All we're trying to determine is whether we can subdivide this and where the subdivision lines are going to be drawn.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Anyone else from the board? Any thoughts from the board before we open it up for public comment? All right. Is there anybody from the public who would like to share their thoughts with us?
Hey everyone, this is Devin Graham. Can you hear me okay?
Devin.
Hi everyone. So I live at 508. Oh,
thank you. I was just going to ask you for that. Thank you very much. 508.
I live at 508 Bay Road, which is just south of Wadsworth. And I support the waiver really for 2 main reasons. The first one that seems very obvious to me is the 80% reduction in truckloads. I have 2 young boys. The oldest actually is named Tag, which is a unique name, but and they're constantly on their bikes, constantly going to Wadsworth, going to school, you name it, up and down Bay Road. And it seems to me that lately there's just been a lot of truck traffic in general with a lot of projects going on, whether it's Bryant, Mullins, Seoul, all the neighborhoods in between. It's really taking a beating on Bay Road. But then also, my kids like to go to the Wadsworth Park a lot. And I don't know if you're familiar with Wadsworth, the road itself, but to get up to from Bay Road, it's really a tight, windy uphill road. And if there's going to be more trucks that are going to be coming down or around that area or increasing the length of that project, just seems to me that's going to be very dangerous for a lot of the kids that live in the neighborhoods surrounding it. So really just reducing the amount of trucks that are going to be in the neighborhood is the number one reason for me. What was that?
Nothing. It was somebody's off mute.
The second reason is I have my uncle actually lives in Ocean Woods. So we're constantly, in which, if you're familiar with Ocean Woods, it's the condo complex that abuts actually the property. Dan Coonahan, he lives at 12 Ocean Woods. His back deck would actually look right out to the project. And I think a lot of people, I've actually lived there for a little bit. My uncle bought the condo for my mother when she passed away. And I think a lot of people in that neighborhood would probably agree that, any increased privacy would be a plus. If you're going to take down less trees, I think that would be a win. And then also, not having the houses too close to those condos would be a big win as well. Just going over the plans, it looks like that the lots are 2.5 acres, which is pretty large, but to have all that room in the back with the conservation land just seems like a total plus. But again, just to go back to my first point, I think that the waiver to me is kind of a no-brainer, just because if we can reduce the amount of trucks, that would be a huge win for the community.
All right. Thank you, Devin. Anybody else from the public? No one else from the public? Just second time. Going. Okay. All right. So board members, we've heard from our applicant, from the public. Next step would be to actually close the hearing and vote on this. So thoughts on continuing or closing this hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Shall we've closed the meeting. Is there any other, do we have any other discussion?
Madam Chair, there was a motion to close the meeting. We haven't voted to close it yet.
Okay. All right. So once we close the motion, then we'll be voting on this. So is there any other discussion that the group would like to have?
Before closure?
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Dennison. Sorry.
No. Yeah, I can talk after we close. You can only can only talk before we do.
So just real quick, Madam Chair, just procedurally, are you going to vote relative to the waiver? And I mean, to me, it would make sense to vote relative to the waiver before you close the hearing, because whether you do or don't grant the waiver, there's still business to be done relative to this application.
Other business?
Well, if you deny the waiver, for instance, we'd still like a vote on the project without the waiver. We'd like to have that approved so we can go forward.
Yeah, I think, sorry to jump in, but I mean, I think I'm inclined to agree. If the waiver gets denied, then probably I suppose they'd need more time to do a complete design with 150-foot diameter. But in any case, yeah, it seems to make sense to decide on the waiver before closing the hearing.
And I think we have given you that full design previously. You asked for that, and we gave you a fully engineered plan. I think, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but again, I think the point is I'd like to see. I think it makes sense for this board just to vote on the waiver before the hearing's closed.
Typically, we close the public hearing and then grant the waivers and then move. But I understand your point. But procedurally, can we do this, Matthew? Actually vote on the waiver before we've done an informal straw poll.
I mean, I guess I would do a straw poll to be on the safe side. I'm not entirely sure. I think you probably can, but I'm not 100% sure. So it might be wise to do the straw poll just to be on the safe side. I think we're probably okay either way. But
Wayne, you're saying something?
If they don't need a waiver, we just have to say yes. If there's a plan without a waiver, then yes, they get to subdivide in accordance with that plan. And I don't even know what the controversy is.
Well, has the plan without the waiver, has that one actually been fully peer reviewed. I can't remember if there were like stormwater calculations and if it was fully peer reviewed.
I can jump in. Like I said before, the infrastructure, whether it's the 80-foot diameter with the waiver or the 150-foot diameter without the waiver, is the same. So the design is the same either way.
So does that mean you've essentially the peer review that you've done would essentially be valid for
Correct.
for either one?
Correct.
Because essentially it's the same from your point of view. I guess it is the same thing. It's just a question of where the lines, the right-of-way lines are.
Yep.
And then of course what happens within the lots is not not an issue, I guess.
That's correct.
Jen, were you going to say something?
I was just agreeing with Wayne's feedback a moment ago.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
I was agreeing with what Wayne was saying a few moments ago.
Right. So Wayne, when you suggested the applicant is asking for a waiver. So that's what they're asking us to vote on.
Right. So, but why would we take a straw poll before we vote on what the applicant is asking for if everybody's talked? We're either going to do it or we're not going to do it.
Yeah, my only request is that you don't close the hearing. If you grant the waiver, then you can vote to approve it. Then I think we're good to go. If you don't grant it, we'd like to continue.
No,
that's my only request.
So I think that's a valid. Sorry to jump in, but I mean, I think that seems like a valid point of view. If the board isn't going to grant the waiver, it would seem legitimate for the applicant to want, for whatever reasons, that's up to the applicant. Whatever their reasons are, that's fine. But if the applicant would prefer to request a continuance, if the board isn't willing to grant the waiver, that kind of seems reasonable to me. And I guess I'd also just say, speaking more broadly, I've seen a lot of situations, not so much here, but working for other planning boards in other towns where they close the hearing and then they, within a few minutes, they wish they hadn't closed it because suddenly something comes up that somebody remembers or that somebody realizes there's another question they wanted to ask. You really want to be totally sure you've got everything, your ducks in a row before you close the hearing because things always come up. And so I think you just want to really, don't do it until you know absolutely what directions you're going in and how the votes are going to happen. I mean, that's just my advice, but I would emphasize that based on my experience.
Right.
I don't have any issue with voting on the waiver. That what I would have an issue with is we have a vote on the waiver, and if the waiver was somehow denied and we continue, that we're going to then do this again because the public hearing is still open, and we can then make a whole series of more arguments as to why we should have granted the waiver. That I have an issue with.
Well, I think
I mean, I agree. As Wayne, I agree with you there, Wayne. I think we should make a definitive final decision here. And I think, I mean, from your point of view, Wayne, you probably say the board made that decision the last time. So I see your point. Yeah.
It seems to me that I'm fully in favor of granting approval of this subdivision to the extent that it complies with all our subdivision rules, 100%. And but I don't want to keep revisiting the waiver if for some reason, and I don't think we're going to vote it down because I can do the math in my head. I just don't want to keep revisiting the waiver over and over again if we have a vote tonight on the waiver.
So this board has my commitment that we're going to let that issue die if it doesn't get, we'll treat this vote as definitive on that point.
I'm good with that.
So this is Jen. Question. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Do we need to vote on that? Okay.
All right. So any discussion we'll vote to close the hearing, doing it with a roll call vote, starting with Jen, keeping in mind that we wouldn't be able to provide the straw poll or the vote before the closing, the vote on the waiver before we close. So we'll start with Jen.
Nay.
Nay. Kristen Rapp, nay.
Wayne Dennison, nay.
Pat Carpenter, nay.
Steve Gant, nay.
Matt Ray, nay.
Lawrence Ferrari, nay.
Thank you. We will not be closing the hearing. Jen?
Quick question. Rather than do another straw poll, can we move to grant the requested waiver for the 80-foot diameter cul-de-sac?
I think did you just make the motion?
I'm happy to make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we've had a lot of discussion. Any discussion now? I will call for a roll call vote, starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, nay.
Kristen Rapp, yay.
Matthew Ray, yay.
Steve Gant, aye.
Wayne Dennison, nay.
Lawrence Ferrari, nay.
I think that is that 3 to 4.
Tag Carpenter, nay.
Sorry, I thought I was. All right, so I think that's 3 in favor, 3 opposed. So that would mean that the motion to grant the waiver did not pass. Is that correct? Did I do the math right?
3 in favor, 4 opposed.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I think it was 4 opposed and 3 in favor, I believe.
Okay, I think I did that backward. Okay.
I mean, we could do it again just to be totally sure, but I think that's what it was.
I think it was Kristen, Matt, and Jen in favor and 4 opposed.
No, I was not in favor.
Oh, you were nay. No, I'm sorry. It was Kristen, Matt, and Steve.
And Steve, correct.
Sorry about that, Jen. Thank you, Steve. All right, so that waiver, the planning board will not grant the waiver from section 7.3.10C of the subdivision rules and regulations to allow for the 80-foot diameter cul-de-sac layout. So Mr. D'Ambrosia, how would you like to proceed at this point?
We'd love your vote to approve the subdivision plan without any waivers that's been presented to you.
Okay. So now do we keep the hearing open and closed, or now do we close the hearing? Matthew?
I guess again, I'd suggest you may want to discuss it a little bit as far as, I mean, probably only for a short period of time since it's been a long night, but just a little bit, maybe take another look at the drawing and talk with Pat Brennan briefly. Just make sure you know how you're all going to vote on it, with the 150-foot diameter. I think for the past few months, we've always been looking at it mainly with the 80-foot diameter. So it is a little different. For the most part, it's the same. Mostly it's the same as Pat mentioned, but still, it might be just worth spending a few minutes to discuss it quickly.
So just for my edification, because I may have lost the thread here. Do we have a plan that we can thereafter endorse and sign that reflects the 150 without any waivers?
I can answer that. So the exhibit was separate, so we'd essentially have to take the exhibit that we provided and replace that with C2. It wouldn't be any new information that you haven't seen, but basically that would take the place of that.
I'm sorry, Josh, I'm not following. C2 doesn't have any.
C2, yeah, so that's the actual property line plan. So that one in the site plan set is still the 80-foot. We'd essentially just have to bring that cul-de-sac that shows the 150 and put it on this plan. So there wouldn't be any new information. It's just taking that exhibit's property line and putting it on this plan here.
So I think that I'm guessing that the board would like to see a final plan.
If I may, through the chair, procedurally, we cannot close the hearing if there's any pending new information to be submitted. I was not aware that the submission was missing the 150-foot design on C2.
Yeah, I think to be on the safe side, and I know it's been continued many times, but it would be appropriate to have the final set of drawings. And I know Pat Brennan said it's okay and so forth, but to actually have that final set completed, and it sounds like from what Josh was saying, there would still have to be some drawings that would be kind of, or some images had to move from one to the other, or C2 or whatever it is. And so it seems like we don't have, I mean, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we don't actually have that final set right now of drawings. Or maybe Pat can jump in too, but that's what it sounds like. I mean, we have the drawing that shows the 150 diameter, but we don't have a full set of drawings of the design of that design. Does that make
It's
sense?
just not in one set right now. So you have
Yeah.
all the information, but it's not in one set.
Yeah.
We would need the final set. So with that, I think, go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be wise. I'm not sure from a legal point of view, but I think Jen's probably correct, both for legally, but also just common sense. It just seems like it would be really wise to do. It's only another 2 weeks anyway. It would be wise to do that. I think we'd have to probably extend the deadline, but I assume the applicant's willing to do that.
Yeah.
Makes what extend to our next meeting, which would be.
I believe right now the deadline is February 10th, I believe. And so, and that's the deadline to file the decision with the town clerk. So even if we did approve it or deny it, or decide on February 9th, it's unlikely we'd be able to get the decision in by February 10th, or it'd be difficult anyway. So I think it'd be wise to extend the deadline maybe to February 20th or March 1st or something like that.
Wayne, even though you're not unmuted, you are muted.
I'm muted.
You're good now.
Yeah, I'd be very much in favor of holding our feet to the fire on this. I don't want to extend the deadline out to March 1st. I'd like to give us a couple days after our very next meeting to get the decision on file, but the applicant has been incredibly good about continuances, and I'd like to make sure that we respect that and we get to the point where they get an approval, because if they have a plan that they're submitting without waivers, they're entitled to approval.
Yeah, I just suggest maybe just extend the deadline to February 20th or February 17th, just to give us just a little bit enough time to get all the signatures or whatever needs to be done. I mean, there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes paperwork and stuff that takes some time. It's not instantaneous. So I'd suggest February 20th, I guess. I mean, that's only 10 days. Right now the deadline right now is February 10th, so February 20th would only be 10 more days.
Would that be amenable to the applicant, Mr. D'Ambrosia?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
And so, Mr. D'Ambrosia, you're willing to sign as kind of a standard on behalf of the applicant. You're willing to sign as some sort of standard thing, standard deadline for each month.
I like to think we've played by the rules throughout the process, and we'll continue to do so. We're not looking to skirt anything here, and I hope that's been clear to the planning board throughout this extended process.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. Is there anything else we need? Any other? Okay. So do we need to?
We have to move to continue this hearing until the next public hearing.
Okay. So, but we're just continuing it. So yes. Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to February 9th, when we'll have another public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a roll call vote, starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, aye.
Kristen Rapp, aye.
Wayne Dennison, aye.
Oh, sorry.
Steve Gant, aye.
Ted Carpenter, aye.
Florence Roy, aye.
All right, the motion passes. We will continue this to February 9th. I want to thank the applicant for all the due diligence and the work on your part and with us on this. Look forward to getting this into the books here within the next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have another public hearing. This is a new one. This is 161 Winter Street, an ADU administrative site plan review. Do I have a motion to open this public hearing?
moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, call for roll call vote, starting with Jen to open the hearing.
Arcot, aye.
Kristen Rapp, aye.
Matthew Ray, aye.
Steve Gant, aye.
Wayne Dennison, aye.
Terry Carpenter, aye.
Lawrence Roy, aye.
All right, motion passes. We will open this public hearing. So for our applicant, the process here is that we will hear what you have to say. You'll present on 161 Winter Street, the ADU, and then we as a board will ask questions. We might go back and forth a bit, and after that, we'll open it up to public. So we'd love to hear from the applicant now, please.
Madam Chairman, yeah, Max is going to speak he's the for Grady Consulting, and I'm here as well for Buildex.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, Max.
Yep. Good evening. My name is Max Capola with Grady Consulting. Buzz and Tom are also here from Buildex. Representing our client, Stephen and Melanie Tucker. The project is for a protected use ADU in the rear of the property with a garage underneath. Would you like me to share my screen here, or does everybody have the plan up in front of them?
But why don't you go ahead and pull it up so we've got it. It's easy to see while you're talking. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. All right. So I'm working from my home computer here. Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Not yet, but it will probably take a second to populate. Yep, there we go. Got it.
Okay, so as you can see, the ADU is located at the rear of the lot here. We're also proposing to have a Title V compliant septic system for this, as well as the existing dwelling. So the grading for the project will protect the natural features of the site, and we have proposed erosion control along the rear of the site to prevent any erosion or sedimentation to the wetland. As you can see in the back there, we have the 100-foot buffer shown as the dash line here. There's no work proposed within that buffer zone. So the ADU, like I said, is located in the back of the property with a separate driveway, which connects from the existing driveway out here in the front. And it will not have any obstructions to the site distance entering or exiting the driveway. All lights proposed for the accessory dwelling unit will be dark sky compliant, will not cast over the property lines. The parking, we have proposed some parking outside of the ADU with you can see the turnaround there, and as well as the two spaces underneath in the garage underneath. And we have proposed all utilities to be underground. I would like to open it up to any questions.
Yes. Does anybody from the board have any questions about this?
I really thought this plan was very well done. The one question I have, and I don't know the answer to it, so that I'm going to ask the question. Does the porch count towards the square footage?
I'd like to move that to Buzz.
I'll take that, Max, I'll take that. So under the state ADU bylaw, porches, garages, decks, and breezeways are all exempt from the square foot allowance.
Okay. And we didn't modify that at all in our bylaw. That's a question.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay.
We did meet with the zoning officer informally to discuss this plan, and he, gave us a verbal okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board?
I have a quick question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Jen.
By my dimensions, my calculations, it looks like you're just over 1,000 square feet. I believe it's supposed to be 900, correct?
Yeah, the interior airway, it's called gross floor area, and that's an interior dimension from the inside face of the outside walls. That jog you see on the left-hand side, looking at this plan, is the stairs to the garage under, which again, are exempt.
But the stairs are on the interior of the building. Why would that be exempt?
They are, but they're in an unheated area, and they're the stairs to the garage, and they are part of the garage. They are not part of the gross floor area.
This is something that I could check with the building inspector. I mean, that's the same person as the zoning enforcement officer. Just to verify, I mean, it kind of looks, it's kind of eyeballing it. It looks okay to me, but it wouldn't hurt to double check with him to verify that it really is by his calculation, which I think we should probably be willing to accept his calculation, but to verify that he agrees it's within 900 square feet, and in terms of defining what is and what is not, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. If I can just interrupt, I just want to remind you, it's not square footage, it's gross floor area. It's a completely different calculation.
And
I understand.
I'm absolutely positive that the zoning enforcement officer knows the difference.
100%. Yeah, we've had this discussion with him several times.
You've had this discussion with Jim?
Yes, Tom has. He's on the call as well. He's met with Tom. Yeah.
Okay. I think it would be helpful to us if right now, when I look at the plan, I look at this plan, the house plan, I don't see anything here that indicates what the square footage or gross square footage is. Would it be possible I think I'd like to see that on here. I think that's also something that our planning director might have raised with also. Because that is something that, although Jim is the zoning enforcement officer is in charge of that, ultimately we need to approve this, and so we need to be able to see this on the plan.
Yeah, we absolutely can provide that.
Right, thank you. Anyone else from the board have any thoughts?
Madam Chair, yes, I actually did have a question here. I'm looking at a hard copy of the plan here, and I'm looking at the new driveway that you're proposing, and the driveway, of course, is very close to the lot line with the 167 Winter Street, the abutter to the right. And I guess I'm concerned that and now it does indicate that there's an existing fence there, which I think is advantageous. However, it does not appear that that existing fence goes the full length of the driveway, such that it would shield visibility of the driveway or lights from vehicles traveling on the driveway. It would not shield the abutter from those. So I was concerned that the fence doesn't extend that full length, and to see if there were any plans either to replace the fence, to extend the fence, or to put any other buffer between the driveway and the abutter at 167 Winter Street.
Max, you want to take that, or you want me to answer?
You can answer.
Yeah. So if you look at the plans, Max, if you can zoom in, the fence does start quite close to Winter Street, right there at the front, and that's where the car would be turning in. So that would be blocking the headlights of the house adjacent to the right. And then the driveway is a straight shot down the property line, so there'd be no headlight glare to the neighbor's property. And the fence does end there, as shown in the drawing, about 3/4 of the way down the driveway, and that's where the driveway starts to slope down to the garage under, and that is following a natural grade of the lot there. There is a slight cut, but not much. This property already drops off significantly in the back. There's actually an old foundation back there from some type of building that used to be in the back of the property. So that's how this garage under concept came to be, because the grade is already set up naturally to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the requirements of our site plan review is that we need to be able to see 100 feet in either direction of the ADU. And it looks like we can see 50 to the back line. Am I doing this right? Roughly 50 feet to the back line, but we don't really see much beyond that. Looks like maybe, I don't know, 20 feet to the top. Would it be?
Can you, I'm not sure you're referring to. Can you explain that?
Sure. The overview, the map is supposed to show 100 feet in either direction of the ADU. In the
On
reason
this,
so that we can see the impact of the
oh, I see. Adjacent properties, you're saying? Yes,
properties. Yes, exactly.
understood. Okay.
So maybe that if we're going to be adding the square footage or gross footage to the other drawings, we could just add that here too as well. That would be great.
So extend the view of the, I guess, aerial here showing the surrounding. Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. And I have to say the aerial is really helpful too. It's just, it's nice when it's adds more color, no pun intended, to the surrounding area. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Easier to absorb that. Anything else from the board? Any other questions? I think this is our third ADU and it's our second one with BuildX.
My only comment is I hope everybody submits plans that look like these. I mean, they got to be tweaked a little, but this aerial view that actually depicts the other properties and the other structures, this thing is terrific.
Thank you very much.
I just have two comments. One, I know Steve mentioned the driveway. I was just wondering if it's right up against the property line. If the owner had given any thought to maybe moving the driveway 5 feet off the fence, just have a little bit of a buffer. Maybe whether it's we've got the fence there, but just something to think about.
Well, the Madam Chair, if I may, the reason it's held tight there is the occupants of the main house have several small children. They're trying to maximize the yard. You can see there's a new fence proposed to enclose the pool.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to maximize their play area, quite frankly.
And if they didn't go over the impervious limit, they could have put this driveway in without any approval.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, I know that Max, sorry, we talked a little bit about this the first time you came. And that was we talked about the garage underneath and the fact is, what is it, 6 to 8, or it's just under 7 feet.
Yeah, garages are exempt from the gross floor area calculation. That only applies to basements.
Yeah, it's interesting that when we drew up our own ADU, I think many of us thought about this. We were thinking it would be a one-story unit without anything else. And so I find this very intriguing. I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not really keen on this because now it goes from 900 square feet to it doubles the size of this. And that's not really what the intention of our bylaw was. I understand how you're able to do this. I'm just mentioning this to the board because this might be something that we want to look at in the future. I don't know. We may not be able to, but it's something that's kind of percolated at the top of my brain since we've been looking at these.
No, I appreciate your comments. If you closely take a look at the state law, the way it was passed, it specifically talks about garages and how they're exempt from the gross floor area calculation. And that's been, I'm not going to say universally accepted by building inspectors, but we have permits in half a dozen other towns with similar plans. So
I'm going to be candid with you. I thought this looked terrific.
Well,
I thought the garage under made a whole lot of sense. I think that the garage is in fact exempted, and as long as it's within 900 square feet, I think it's a very attractive and very well thought out design.
Yeah, I agree. It's very attractive. I just wasn't what I was expecting. That's all. Size wise. Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, the whole garage issue is difficult because, in some cases, Probably not in this case, but certainly sometimes with ADUs, they're actually built over garages that are actually serving the main house as opposed to the ADU, or maybe serving them both. So it gets, sometimes they're built over existing garages, of course, or they could be, it all could be, the ADU could be attached to the house and the garage is attached to them all. So it does get confusing, and sometimes it's really hard to draw the line differentiate. So I mean, I guess with given all those factors, I guess it probably makes sense. And I mean, I think probably from a legal point of view, it's probably the case also, but there is a certain amount of sense to it, but it is, but I certainly, I hear what you're saying, Kristen, that it's definitely different from what I think a lot of people envisioned with ADUs, thinking about, a cottage or 900 square feet, it gets a lot bigger. And of course, also, I mean, we've had somewhere like the unfinished space, or, like if it's lower than 6 feet or something, then it doesn't count too, like unfinished space. If not, there are all these kind of complicated exemptions, which do have the effect of making the structures larger, even if the actual lived area or the gross floor area is still under 900. So, maybe that's just what you have to kind of accept, perhaps. I mean,
But this doesn't make the structure larger. You have a structure that's largely compliant. I think we're going to have it, measured, and the fact that you can drive your car under it doesn't make any alteration to the ultimate size of the structure.
Well, I think, Wayne, when we talked about this, probably in many of our heads, at least in mine, we were thinking of a 900-foot structure with somebody parking outside. That's all. So it's just
this is better.
Yeah, it's attractive. It's not what I think I was expecting. So
I agree that the drive under makes it a better project, especially given the conditions outside today.
All right, any other questions or thoughts from the board? No? All right, so it sounds like we need just a little bit of information from the applicant. So I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing, or to actually, continue this hearing.
So moved. Do we want to do it to the 9th or the one after that?
What do we have on the 9th? We already have Wadsworth, and is that when we'll be talking about Bess? Is that the Bess public hearing?
Yeah, it is. But I guess, just two things. So, I mean, I would recommend the 9th just because the applicant's probably in a hurry, even if the 9th might be a little busy. And I think as far as the deadline goes, like the deadline is roughly in late February, so we're in good shape there. I guess I'd just suggest open it to the public to see if any members of the public have any comments.
Thank you.
Can I make can I have a quick question, please? So it seems like the two things that you want are the gross floor area calc for the ADU, showing that it's the 900 square feet, and to extend the aerial to 100 feet past to see more on the abutters. So I guess the gross floor area calc was kind of covered with the zoning officer giving the verbal okay on it, and Buzz's explanation. And the 100-foot extension, it's not too much further than what we have already shown. And I could pull up a Google Earth to show that it's all wooded back there. It's 100 foot of wetlands, so there's no disturbance between that. So I was wondering if we could have some like agreement to try to close this for that reason.
Through the chair, my particular view is I don't have any big issue with showing us a Google map that extends the view here, but I would really like a site plan that actually denominates and specifies the gross floor area, and this one doesn't.
Can I just make an interjection here?
Can I jump in real quick?
just real quick.
Yeah.
I think your site plan and your base plan are backwards. So if you look at where the driveway is coming in, it's not where the notched stairwell is. So this plan's just it's wrong.
No, so just for clarification, that the two-car garage under is there on the right-hand side, and then you get out of the car and you walk towards the left-hand side and you go up the stairs into the house. If you look at the floor plan you've been provided.
So the floor plan, Lauren, is 180 degrees. The actual house is 180 degrees. It's flipped compared to the site plan.
Okay. I see. I'm sorry.
I did the same thing when I looked at this.
And then as far as the zoning opinion, I'm fine with continuing to the 9th. That'll give us a time to go meet with the zoning officer and hopefully get a written opinion for you to put in the file. And we'll also amend the plan to show the 900 GFA on the plan.
Okay, that would be great. And we have Emily and Matthew, let's put this first because I don't think this will take as long. And they've already sat through a Wadsworth public hearing. So
I appreciate that. As entertaining as it was.
Maybe for you. All right, so let's open it up. Let's open it up to the public now. Anything from the public? And Max, would you mind? You can probably stop sharing.
Yep. Sure.
Any questions or comments from the public? Nobody, no butters, nothing, neighbors. Okay.
We did send letters to all the abutters with the set of plans and the site plans as well.
All right, thank you. All right, so I guess at this point, if there's no more there are no more comments from the board or from Matthew, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to continue this to February 9th.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, starting with Jen.
Jen Turcott, aye.
Christine Rapp, aye.
Matthew Ray, aye.
Steve Gant, aye.
Guy Carpenter, aye.
Wade Dennison, aye.
Lauren Sarai, aye.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you, Buzz and Max, for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you in 2
Thank
weeks.
you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
All right, up next, we have to discuss the comprehensive plan implementation, proposed zoning bylaw. I see, okay, I thought there were other people here, but it looks like they left with the ADU, so they didn't have any comment. Maybe they just wanted to know what's going on. Okay, so we'll go to agenda item number 5, discuss comprehensive plan implementation. I think, Matthew, that's probably your cue.
Kristen, I think I sent you an email earlier that I had an 8 o'clock hard stop.
Is there anything up there?
It's 8:03, so regrettably, I am going to sign out.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wayne.
Bye, Wayne.
Bye.
Kristen, I actually need to jump off too. I apologize.
Thanks for joining. Dropping like flies.
Getting close.
You got everybody.
They're all disappearing.
Like,
Anybody else want to? I guess we still got 5. We still got 5 people, so we still got a quorum, I guess, easily. And actually, that worked out pretty well since the public hearings ended, at 8 roughly. So that timing was good. They were there for those. So yeah, for the comp plan implementation, really nothing much to say beyond what I wrote here in my report. I figured it'd be a long night, so I didn't try to distribute anything to you folks. At this point, there's not much to. But I'm in the process of sending out the request to the different department heads and board committee chairs and so forth as you folks requested. And it's a pretty simple thing, really. All they have to do is kind of, give us some comments about, for all those different tasks. I should call them action items, I guess. For the different action items, they just need to sort of tell us where they stand now on those, and then check the box to show also where it stands and sort of give us comments as to how they're doing or whether they think they're still applicable or just in general comments. Um, for some departments, it's only if, one or two or three action items. For others, it's like, 10 or 20. So it really varies. And of course, we've got all the comments from, I think it was 2023. I think they are. Yeah, I think it was 2023. So it'll be interesting. And of course, the plan, I think, was done in 2019 or 2020. So it'll be interesting to see what comments we get and what feedback we get, now that it's been 3 years later again. And so I think at this point it's too early to really, well, it's pretty late now, and it's too early. It's way too early to kind of start to get into the details. I've only gotten responses from two so far, but I think over time I'll get responses for more, and I'll kind of be reminding some of them, of course. So I think gradually we'll probably get pretty good responses, and I have the benefit too that we have department head, at the town hall we have department head meetings once a month. So I can always kind of remind them at some of those department head meetings as well. So it seems like it's going pretty well. So yeah, that's it. That's it for that.
Well, thank you for the update. Look forward to hearing from the department heads as to what's going on and what's been implemented. That's great. Thank you. All right, moving on to number 6, discussing the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. So really the big one here is Bess, Matthew and Tag and town council and I've been looking at this. Tag and Matthew in particular have really been digging into that, so I appreciate that. This is a tricky one, right? We talked about this with Amy that because we really have so little, we don't have any industry, we have so little commercial, we can't just relegate the storage systems to those areas, which to me is a natural spot. So the debate keeps coming up. Do we prohibit it from all of residential? Do we prohibit it from the PDs? Do we not? Do we prohibit it from light use from the commercial areas? And I don't feel like we've kind of really resolved that as a board. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Because we feel like we need to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 9% available, but most of our property is residential or conservation.
I guess I should just mention that, at this point, I think the version we've submitted, since the select board is supposedly meeting tonight and closing the warrant, I think it is the final version, but we could always make changes on the floor of town meeting, and I suppose if it was imperative, we might be able to persuade them to reopen the warrant if we wanted to revise it, although that would probably create a lot of unhappiness. But anyway, that's kind of, I think, where we stand right now.
Strongly discourage making any changes at the floor of town meeting.
Strongly agree.
Yeah, I mean, practically, my understanding is due to the need for additional review of any proposed changes, even, something on the floor that hasn't already been run through the ringer can't pass anyway. The absolute drop dead is about a month before town meeting for any kind of a revision, even if it's going to be done as a floor vote.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Of course, we can't anticipate what floor votes could come from the public, or then what town council could say in reply. Is that it's not valid or it gets complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, any other thoughts for now, or we just want to hold off until our public hearing in 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, in terms of thoughts, we sort of left off at the end of the last meeting where we discussed this, touching on you just touched on it again, this question, what's the appropriate percentage of land area, and I would take it even further, is such a gross metric even appropriate in the town of Duxbury? Because, we're not including any conservation land, as I understand it, in that tally. So it's really not that much land area to start with, since there's so much conservation land. But I think that, I don't know if everybody read Jim Lampert's letter. He arrived at the same question, the same point. It's great that we came up with a map. Great, you can see all these parcels. How many of those parcels actually are viable installation locations? And if they're not, and you back them out of the percentage, what percentage are we actually proposing as viable best land at this point?
Yeah, actually, I did spend some time, because it's certainly interesting to me. and also I kind of want to be able to answer those kinds of questions at town meeting or public hearings, whatever. So I did spend some time looking at the assessor's maps, which are very handy because, of course, they show all the parcels, but they also have the zoning districts as a background layer. So it's a really, and then you can turn on like Google satellite images as a background layer too. So it's an amazingly useful tool. Um, and I'd say, yeah, there definitely are within the constraints we've created, which of course is, only about 10% of the town, those planned development and business minus some overlays. There definitely are, some parcels where, that are big enough with the setbacks that you definitely could put you definitely could do, or at least it looked to me like you definitely could build a battery energy storage system on some of those parcels. Um, Now, are there a lot of parcels like that, or is it only maybe half a dozen, or are there many or few? That I'm not sure about. So I think you make a valid point, Tag, and I think Jim made a valid point that, it's just because we're allowing it in 10% of the town theoretically doesn't really mean that it's anywhere close to that once you start to look at the parcels, um, you know, look closely at the parcels that are within that 10%. But that being said, I think it's probably okay. I mean, these setbacks are not gigantic. If a property, I think if the property is bigger than maybe 3 or 4 acres, I think it's probably feasible. I mean, I forget what the proposal was on the North Street property, but I think it wasn't like a massive property there that they were going to put it on. And with the setbacks, the setback, whatever, be about 200 feet probably. So, if it's a 1 or 2 acre lot, it's impossible, but anything larger than say 3 acres is probably quite feasible, I would guess. Of course, I'm not a battery energy storage developer, so I speak in some ignorance here.
Well, I think Jim raised a lot of good points in his letter, but the underlying tone was what is going to be the result of the Attorney General's office's review? And none of us know at this point. So my initial thought was why voluntarily propose additional locations without having got any input back on the review from the AG's office?
Yeah.
Not to discredit Jim's comments. I thought his reasonings were very valid and it was good. But if this all presupposes that this even gets past the town meeting, which I'm not a gambling guy, but I wouldn't put a lot of money on that it even gets past that town meeting. But presuming it does, then we'll have the review back from the AG's office. And if they kick it back, then that with the ruling that our proposed bylaw is effectively a prohibition of best facilities throughout town, well, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board a bit and maybe expand those areas that are permitted. But why do it voluntarily before we get the review back, the feedback from the AG's office?
With Matt.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with that. I mean, why should we uh, allow it in most of the town when we're not sure at this point we're not sure what the AG is going to say or what case law is going to develop over the years. So why should we kind of give up too much when we don't even know if we need to necessarily? I mean, we've been told by town council, at least as I understood it, that you can't go as low as say 2% because the tracer decision kind of invalidated that. So but town council kind of freely admits that it's hard to know what it should be. And I think Tag makes a valid point that it's not just about the percentage, but also maybe the validity of what your arguments are. Like if your town is 99% wetlands, then presumably it's different from, a lot of other situations. So, 10% certainly seems like a pretty reasonable number given what we know so far. 10% certainly seems like a reasonable thing. Or I guess it's actually like 9.7%, but about 10%. So I think that's probably okay, or it's certainly reasonable in any case. I think we may get more pushback on the whole notion of choosing the PD zones and business zones as opposed to other places. But of course, the problem is, as you've heard me say, Duxbury is like zone 98% residential. Well, if you count PDs as residential, which they really are, 98% residential. So, we're kind of forced to allow it in some residential areas. And at least at one point in time, there was an idea that the PD zones were suited for slightly higher densities or more activities. That's why they were created as PD instead of RC. I think the only other option would be, to maybe instead of doing it by zone, maybe have something like, you know, only properties bigger than maybe 10 acres can become, which this is kind of what Jim was suggesting, like only properties bigger than, a certain size could be done. And I don't know if that's really legitimate or not. We have to check with town council, but it could be something to kind of keep in our back pocket, I suppose, as like a backup option or a plan B.
So will you please ask, is Amy planning to come to the public hearing?
Yeah, I can ask her, or I can ask her to come to the public hearing.
Yes, would you please ask her to come? Thank you. All right, anything else on Bess right now?
Well, I just want to mention that, as I mentioned by email in the process of trying to draft some noise control, it became very clear that it's a bigger issue than one, particular mandate from the state. And the thing that cropped up that I think it might be worth discussing here in the context of this bylaw proposal is whether the town should take the extra step of actually putting in place a certificate or authority to operate. Because we, as far as I know, have nothing like that in our town. We don't exert any kind of regulatory authority over industrial activity in the town. And I'm very concerned that an installation like this, once in place, if we do not have a mechanism of law to shut it down, if we feel the need to, we're going to be stuck with something that we just can't control at all. So I just wanted to bring that up to the board, raise that concern, see if it's something that you guys think should be covered in the best bylaw regulation, a certificate of authority to operate of some kind.
Jack, I think.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying, I think in the current version of the bylaw, the one going to the select board and into the warrant, it does have that verbiage. It does have that additional noise control verbiage, but I guess it doesn't have what you said about us having the power to, I guess what you say, kind of void or reverse the certificate to operate. I guess if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, there's nothing like that in there. It's because the question that comes up, I hear this all the time from residents, constituents, is, where's the enforcement? Where are the teeth in the bylaw? And when I look at this bylaw, and it says the noise will be below a certain level, and it just stops. What's the actual recourse when if somebody's in their house and they're being driven insane by this thing, what is their recourse? And I don't think they have any right now,
Well, hopefully our sound limits will help with that. But the one thing I don't think that we have in there right now is any way to say who pays for that, how they pay for, how do they authenticate the sound? How do we, how do you regulate? Because you point about regulate compliance, and it just doesn't feel like our little bitty town is set up for this.
No. What is it?
Would it be considered noise pollution? And is noise pollution regulated by the Board of Health?
Do you remember when there was the CrossFit right now off of Chandler? There was a residence on Chandler, and then next door was the exercise gym. I want to say it was CrossFit, and there was no way to regulate. There was no way to enforce the sound.
Noise pollution.
Yeah, right. There was no way to regulate that.
Yep.
That was part of the issue. Or I guess because
with pickleball courts too.
I haven't heard that, Jen, but it makes sense.
And Tag, I think your proposal is intriguing, and I I find it interesting, and I think it would be desirable for us to have some kind of an enforcement mechanism. But I think what you're pointing at is we would need some kind of a regulatory body, be it an individual, be it a department, expanding the remit of someone, an existing function, whatever that is. I think there would have to be some, we'd have to have some regulatory mechanism to be able to do that. Quite frankly, it would be nice if the state had imposed something like this. If the state had created some kind of a regulatory mechanism for this. They haven't, to my knowledge. Maybe they have. I don't know. But absent that, I think that's what we need. But Kristen, to your point, being a town the size of Duxbury, we're not really equipped to have that type of regulatory oversight.
Unfortunately, enforcement's going to fall to the zoning enforcement officer, and then at that point, if really it's only going to come about because an abutter will be complaining, right, due to the noise, and then it'll have to be enforced via the zoning enforcement officer, and then measurements would have to be taken, and then legal steps would have to be taken to get a cease and desist letter. Not ideal, but that without specific provisions in the bylaws for any sort of other enforcement mechanism, that would be what you would default to.
And I think it's the same issue, like, I mean, it goes beyond noise, of course, because, developers, applicants, property owners can violate the rules in all kinds of ways. They might build like a tower that's too high or all kinds of things. And so we're always sort of, in general, we're always at the mercy of whatever we or the zoning enforcement officer can do. Obviously in the most dramatic situations, they can actually bring the police and just issue a stop work order or all kinds of things. They can condemn a building and remove the CO, all kinds of things. So I think we're always kind of, we do have a lot of powers. Sometimes we don't have as many powers as we like, but we're always sort of within these situations where all kinds of things can happen. And at least if we have something in our bylaws, whether it's the zoning bylaws or other bylaws, that at least says, you can't do this, then that's a pretty good head start. And that gives us something to stand on. I don't know if it's feasible in every case to say, like, you can't do this, and if you do, then here's what's going to happen. You're going to lose your license or so on and so forth. It's difficult. It's hard.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the other towns, and they're definitely sharing some of these same concerns that, if your administration, your government is set up to handle a certain set of activities as we are, and the state now says, well, we're going to add this activity that's well outside of what you have any ability to regulate or monitor. It's a huge risk for all these towns. So.
Yeah, and actually, I think we briefly discussed this in the last meeting, but just to remind you, the state is also putting out these rules, which I think would go for both solar projects and battery energy storage projects, which of course are sometimes combined anyway. Where like it'll be like some kind of a comprehensive permit situation where the town has to decide within a year. I think it would still, I think it would still fall within our zoning bylaws, and the different boards would still do their jobs. The planning board would do its job with a site plan application, so on and so forth. But definitely this new state set of, I don't know if you call them rules or what, is going to impose some more limits on how we do it and so forth. So, it seems like for better or worse, the state is trying to push this pretty hard. The state seems like they're strongly favoring this and kind of trying to impose it a little bit on us. But it's of course it's not the first time we have 40Bs and other things as well where the state does that to us.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Anything, we can move on to the last item. I think we're all fading.
I'm fading.
So Matthew, anything else? I read the planning director's report. That's always really helpful to kind of get your feedback on that. And you'll see I tried to reference that a bit during the meeting. So thank you. Any questions for Matt here? Hope we got him.
So I got one quick question. It's not related to this, and I don't know if it falls into the planning board's purview for a future meeting, but I'm the liaison on the Bike and Sidewalk Path Committee, and it came up at the last meeting. There is some consternation amongst the board and people in town as to where some of the mailboxes have been sited on the new sidewalks along Washington Street, in that they've been placed in the middle of the sidewalk. Um, the bike and path committee, the sidewalk and bike path committee are not happy with it, and they've raised it to DPW and the postal service, but they're not getting much accommodation so far. And they asked if I could raise this to the planning board to find out if this is even something within the planning board's purview for future discussion. I don't know that it is.
No, I'm curious, what are the rules about where our mailbox is supposed to be cited?
Well, they have to be cited ADA compliant, but what happened was the bike path committee wants the ones that are placed in the middle of the sidewalks to be moved across the street. And because they feel like they're impeding the walkway of the having them placed right in the middle of the sidewalk, they're impeding the walkway and the ADA purpose.
Right.
DPW has come back and said, no, they're still ADA compliant. And it was something along the mail carriers need the ability to drive up on the sidewalk, and that's why they're placed halfway in the middle of the walkway, and they don't want to move them, and DPW doesn't want to move them, and they feel that even though they're in the middle, the sidewalk is still ADA compliant with it. The bike and sidewalk committee is saying, well, we're getting a lot of complaints about that they're in the middle of the sidewalk. This is our first real big project. If this doesn't go over real well, we're not going to be able to get other sidewalk projects done.
Matt, do we know how many sidewalks are, sorry, how many mailboxes are affected?
I don't. I can find out. It's a handful along Washington Street.
Okay.
And you can see them as you drive by. Some are right in the middle of the sidewalk.
And are the residents opposed to having their mailbox across the street?
I don't know if they've done an outreach yet.
So I've heard about this. I've heard some about this from DPW and a few other people, I guess. And I think if I remember correctly, that some of the residents certainly were opposed to having to cross the street to collect their mail from their mailboxes. But I've definitely heard about this kind of back and forth. I don't think there's much the planning board or myself can really do about it. I think having a new sidewalk there is definitely a benefit. It does create some new problems, I guess, because once you start building it, then it has to be ADA, and the old sidewalk situation or whatever, the old mailboxes are no longer feasible. So, and I think that's a part of Duxbury where a lot of the people kind of want things to be to have a certain look and kind of be kind of really scenic or kind of charming in a certain way. It's kind of one of the more high visibility parts of the town, especially to tourists and stuff. And so I think it's difficult for DPW to kind of make it perfect as to satisfy everybody, with on the one hand the ADA rules and the post office desire, and then the realities of construction and the fact that now maybe it no longer looks quite as quaint or as charming as it used to. So, but in any case, yeah, I think honestly, I don't think there's much we can do
Yeah,
about
I don't think it was much on the planning board purview, but I told them I would at least ask the question.
But Matt, I do wonder though, because you're right to your point that this is the first project, want it to go well, and if this is coming up now, it's likely to come up again. So it almost seems like if you could perhaps identify the neighbors whose mailboxes are impacted, get somebody from DPW and get them all together, somebody from the mail service, get everybody in a room and just say like, all right, we need some help here. Like, to me, it seems like that doesn't make sense to have a mailbox or a telephone pole in the middle of a sidewalk. I don't know, but I don't know that we can do anything.
I don't think we can on the planning board side.
Yeah.
But we support your efforts, so let us know if we can help you.
I'll let you know how it gets resolved or does not get resolved.
Just to share a little bit, we went through the same thing with Chestnut Street. It took 5 years of wrangling and several town meeting votes before there finally was a decision made to put a sidewalk down Chestnut Street. And the mailboxes there were placed at the lip pointed out into the street at an angle, oddly. And there was just a big blow up right after it all got done. Everybody said, "This is crazy. Look at these mailboxes. How could you put them there? I have to step into the road. I'm going to get run over to get my mail." I mean, I just don't think there's any way you can satisfy people,
And
frankly.
Chestnut
You
Street
use
was
their
the one
mailbox,
that
they're
came
going to get
up.
upset. That's all I was.
Yeah, that came up, Tag, in the discussions was Chestnut Street and saying
Chestnut, yeah.
it should be a bit angled more like they did in Chestnut Street, not placed in the middle.
Yeah.
So you can't win.
You can't win.
It's a complicated town. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, as far as this thing where we or at least well me on kind of the advice request of the board reserved the room at that Mary room at the library for March 2nd. I think it's March 2nd. I think at the time the assumption was that there might be 3 or 4 zoning bylaw amendments, and so we could have a lot of people interested. At this point, to be honest, it just, we've got the public hearing on February 9th, and we of course could continue it if it seems like there's going to be interest close to town meeting. I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like we need to do that event at the Mary Room. Right now it seems like there's not much interest considering that, nobody's here to discuss the best. I think as we get closer to town meeting, there'll be probably more interest. I mean, there has been interest, of course. We've had some members of the neighbors, members of FOG come. I think as we get close to town meeting, there's going to be kind of a fair amount of interest, but it's not going to be like MBTA communities, I think. So in any case, I guess just what I'm getting at is, do we really need to have that event on March 2nd? It seems to me like we probably don't need it.
I think you're right. I think that's a good observation. I think we can just stick with our public hearings. I thought there was going to be more. Well, we were going to have more bylaws.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We just stick to our meetings. I think that's fine.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Unless somebody wants another meeting, which I don't think they do. So, all right.
Last quick question for Wayne's open seat after he resigns.
Yeah.
I've reached out to a couple folks, but what is the clarity to filling his position? I think his term goes through 2028. If anybody's interested, did they submit an application to town hall and then the board of selectmen does interviews, or do we know what the process is?
My understanding is that people just take out papers, they run for election, and the top 2 people the top person gets the 5-year term and the next person gets the 2-year term, is my understanding. So they don't have to go before the select board. It's just a public election.
Oh, but so we would just be at the upcoming March town election so Wayne's spot would be open on the ballot?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
They're both.
I'm only asking because when I filled it, I filled somebody else's. That's not what we did.
Right. Same. Mine was in the summer. I think yours was. So I think Wayne intentionally is not going. He's going to resign right before the election so that he can.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be 2 seats. It'll be 2 seats shown on the election. But I think, Matt, actually, your question is appropriate because at this point, or at least from what I heard last week, nobody has pulled papers. Nobody seems to be kind of expressing interest in running. I don't know what the deadline is. Maybe they're gonna, but at this point, it seems like it's a possibility that nobody might run for those 2 seats, or maybe only one person. So, in that case, I assume, we have to wait till after the election, perhaps. But at that point, then I guess then I don't know how it works here, but I assume the select board, selects. The select board interviews people. Well, we officially notify that everybody. It's posted on the website or whatever, and then anybody who's interested can submit a letter, application, whatever. They follow the proper process, and I guess the select board will appoint someone or 2 people possibly. I believe. Is that how it's been done in the past? I don't know for Duxbury.
Yeah.
Would the Clipper advertise the openings? I think that happened in the past when nobody had pulled papers, and then that generated some interest.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe just they have been running blurbs every week. They'll say these spots are still open. Jen, you were going to suggest something?
I'm just going to say if the seat isn't filled by signatures filed and to be on the ballot in an election, then it's handled by the select board through an interview process.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's I'm sure there's like an official process they have to follow, where maybe maybe they have to post legal ads in the Clipper, or they have to post it on the website or whatever. But yeah, I think basically, the select board will choose, and probably there'll be more interest when people realize the seats are open. There probably will be more interest. And I mean, there seems like there are a lot of people serving on a lot of the boards and committees in town. We have so many of them who are, really kind of reliable, conscientious people some of those people might be interested in kind of taking a step up to, I mean, I think the planning board is one of the more kind of prestigious kind of boards, I would imagine, one of the more important ones, certainly. Some of those people certainly might be interested in kind of taking a step up and being on the planning board. So my guess is we'll get some volunteers.
Well, I could send a quick email to the letter of the editor and ask him to highlight it somehow. I don't know. I guess he's doing that for everything.
Yeah, I guess we should probably wait and make sure what the proper process is, I guess. But I mean, you're also only free to kind of publicize it to your friends, or I suppose, just to kind of, I mean, all of us can feel free to mention it to anybody you want to. Hey, you can run for planning board if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right. Anything else, anyone? Take a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, call for roll call vote.
Hunter, aye.
Wrap
up.
Yep.
Matthew
Steve Gant,
Ray,
aye.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.